Welcome to the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube. This is our Awakening Together weekly gathering. Each and every week we have a different minister who speaks. If you'd like to attend our services live, please visit our website awakening-together.org. Click on Online Sanctuary on the main menu. Then, How to Enter the Sanctuary. Our services are held Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary.
So just really, really happy to be here. It's been an interesting few months, and it's interesting how when you're away from a community, how you can still just feel them holding you. So thank you. I hope everyone has been having a really good holiday, Thanksgiving and all the other holidays that are coming up. And hopefully you get to see some of your loved ones and just have a good time. So now we'll get ready for just our prayer to begin this sharing, and just ask everyone to just close your eyes and just take a deep breath and just breathe in this moment, just the sacredness of this moment. May we know that the substance of all things is what we truly are, and that nothing that can be observed can provide us with any knowledge of what we truly are, of what our true nature is. And may we come to understand and rest in and as this presence. Rest in and as this beauty, this love, this peace, the back of all things. Knowing that within us is everything that we need to handle this moment, because there is only this moment. So it is. So next, I would like to give a little bit of an intro to the book that Gerry will be reading from, and some of the words that are used in this reading. So I've really been interested and have become very fascinated by Ramesh Balsekar's work or his books since reading Who Cares, which was highlighted during one of Paul Fetterman's satsangs. He was a student of Nisargadatta's, and he was a translator during his satsangs. And as he was becoming enlightened, the translations would begin to happen through him rather than, a literal interpretation. And Nisargadatta, he actually, took notice of this. He allowed him to write about his teachings, which he had previously not allowed anyone to do, and really was kind of against this. But he even implied that he would be writing many books, though Ramesh had not written before. And of course, he did write many books. And what is unique about his writing is his clarity and his ability to convey Nisargadatta's teachings, understanding both English language and Marathi, I think I'm saying that right, which is the language that Nisargadatta spoke. Like the use of certain pronouns like I, me, and what was meant during certain satsangs, he was able to really convey that. Because some of these words are not available in that language. So being intimately acquainted with Nisargadatta and his work, he was able to discern and communicate effectively what was meant in the way that he was trying to communicate. So the reading from today is from The Experience of Immortality by Ramesh Balsekar. This book is an English rendering of, I have to murder some words here, Janeshwar's Amritanubhava. I think I'm saying that right. It's just a commentary in the light of the teaching of Nisargadatta by Ramesh Balsekar. The back of the book, just to give you a little bit of it, it's what it talks about. It's the verses of Amritanubhava written by the teenage saint Janeshwar over 700 years ago, and is translated into modern English, and their meaning explored by our modern day sage. The verses brought to life by the commentary explore profound philosophical issues that are just as relevant to seekers today as they were centuries ago, such as the riddle of oneness in a world of duality, the nature of the guru, the usefulness and limitations of the word in conveying truth, the existence of knowledge and ignorance, the meaning of the self-realized state, the concept of bondage and its source, and the two aspects of ego. So this verse is on page 67 to 69, the verse I'm reading from, and it comes from the chapter called The Identity of Shiva Shakti under the heading We Are Cognizing. The term Shiva Shakti is the male and female aspects of consciousness, or consciousness at rest versus consciousness in movement, unicity, duality. The term noumenon can be substituted with the self. As a recap, and as defined by Helen Hamilton, noumenon is true self, pure awareness, enlightenment, truth or reality. It is not knowable and cannot be known through ordinary sense perception. It cannot be experienced through the senses. Phenomenon, the object of a person's perception, a fact or situation that is observed to exist, an event, fact, or happening that can be observed to occur. And just basically anything that we can observe is phenomenon. So Gerry, thank you, Gerry. We'll be reading from pages 67 to 68.
Thank you, Beverly. Good morning, everyone. We are the cognizing. Therefore, I bow to Shiva Shakti without breaking the unity like this. Just as the object and its reflection merge together as soon as the intervening mirror is removed, or as the rising waves merge with the expanse of water when the breeze stops. Just as one recovers one's sense of presence as soon as one wakes up from sleep, and the absence of presence as well as the dream state both disappear. Just as a piece of salt thrown into the sea gives up its paltry independent existence and becomes the entire sea, so also I have given up my individual existence and have merged with the unicity that is Shiva. It is by acknowledging in this way the inseparableness that is basic between the noumenon and the phenomena that I have notionally paid my homage to Shiva Shakti. In these closing verses, Jnaneshwar enunciates the Advaita doctrine and a few pithy but poetic images which require some meditation. He very clearly gives several pointers to that, which is the subjective noumenon, is essentially formless, but which has objectified itself as the manifested universe and the infinite, ever-changing phenomena therein. He devotes the bulk of the chapter to establishing the identity of the noumenon and the phenomena, manifestation being the objectivization of the supreme subjectivity. Then towards the end, he quietly includes himself as part of the total essential identity by declaring that the only way to pay his respects to the primeval couple, Shiva Shakti, is to apperceive the essential identity of all independent opposites. He thereby surrenders his own ego or individual volitional identity. These opposites form the very basis for manifestation, and without them as subject and object, as the observer and the observed, no manifestation could be possible. In other words, the sage by implication makes it clear there is an inseparable unity between the noumenon as the only subjectivity and the objectified manifestation as a whole. Like the waves on an expanse of water, like the waves on an expanse of water. This unity arises only because each sentient being, forgetting he's really only an object, like any other phenomenon in the total manifestation, assumes he is the subject and all other phenomena are his objects. What is more, the sage makes it clear that the very understanding of this fact is an obeisance within the essential unity, and at the same time is liberation from the conceptual bondage. The cardinal error in the understanding of what we are is that we think in terms of a cognizer and the cognized object as being something substantial. Such thinking ignores what is basic and fundamental, that what we are is the cognizing, the functioning of the total manifestation, that both the cognizer and the original cognized object are only appearances, mere hallucinations, and that the entire manifestation is the temporal objective expression of the subjectivity that we are as the intemporal I. The sentient world and the absolute, the manifested and the unmanifested, are both what we are, consciousness. The one in movement and in temporal expression, the other static in stillness and repose. Any object seen or any event observed has its existence only because we have perceived the object or experienced the event. That is to say, only because one of our senses has recorded the percept or the event, and the mind has interpreted it in the duality of subject-object. It is very important to note that the object or event cannot, therefore, have any independent existence other than our perceiving of it as an appearance in our consciousness. And since the perceiving is only the temporal and the phenomenal functioning of whatever we are, the entire universe, all the objects and all the events therein cannot be anything other than the noumenal I, expressing itself through the manifold phenomena, through the innumerable yous and me's, appearing and disappearing from moment to moment. Nisargadatta Maharaj said repeatedly, this is the only apperception necessary to disidentify ourselves from the individual entity that we think we are. This is the only conceptual liberation from the conceptual bondage. So long as there is a me thinking, feeling, and reacting as an independent entity, there is no difference between enlightenment and ignorance, because both are interrelated concepts in relation to the conceptual entity. It is only when the supposed dual entity itself disappears in its entirety that the conceptual bondage also disappears, together with all interrelated concepts. Indeed, Janasheshwar, in his profound work on the Bhagavad Gita, known as Janasheshwari, specifically says the reader is God, consciousness, and what is read is also God. Of course, the reading is the total functioning of that which is manifested. The crux of this entire chapter is the negation of duality. The desire of anyone to know his true nature, to know the truth, can arise only in the state of duality, for the simple reason that in a state of unicity, there can be no one aware of existence, and therefore no one to ask what he really is. The state of duality is a state of objectivization and movement, a state where there must necessarily be space for an object to be extended in volume and time for that object to be observed in movement. In this state, there is necessarily an observer and an object observed, subject and object. Duality is a state of temporality in which the singular me and the plural we are both concepts in consciousness of our existence, dual concepts which disappear in their mutual negation, leaving us as I, a unicity, eternality. Finally, by saying there is no separate entity to pay respects to Shiva Shakti, themselves only aspects of the one unicity, the sage has totally demolished the concept of the existence of a sentient being as an independent entity. And in doing so, he has cleared up the confusion regarding the matter of illusion. He has brought out the fact that a separate autonomous entity is certainly an illusion or hallucination, because it is only an appearance in the consciousness of the one who observes it, and therefore has no self-nature. But phenomenality as such, manifestation in its totality, is not illusory in the sense that noumenality is very much immanent therein.
Thank you, Gerry. Appreciate it. So I've been enjoying this book. So what I've often understood intellectually, the concept that this world is an illusion, has been really a sort of esoteric side of spirituality for me. You know, the idea that, you know, there is no other, or there's only consciousness. What I'm realizing is that the acceptance of this cannot be intellectual. As long as it is intellectual, there will always be a questioning of it. There'll be a constant forgetting and a needing to remember. Ramesh Balsekar often talks about apperception versus intellectual grasping of something, that there is only so far that the intellect can go, and the direct apperception is not in our control, but that when it happens, it is true understanding. I'm sure we all had these moments when the mind tries to collect it, re-explain it, improve upon it, highlight it, record it, and memorialize it, and put it in a box for further review. When we think we have gotten something or read something that's really struck us in a certain way. But the mind can never improve upon the original apperception. When it happens, it is already complete, and no amount of notes that I can take on it can make it more so. In fact, I found that this can be a hindrance, and the intellect attempts to hijack what is so natural and profound. Even as I read the books that I'm reading now, as this body mind loves to do, it is hard not to underline or highlight, and my mind keeps attempting to get it when it has already been gotten or not. The thing that is hilarious about this is that I rarely go back to review it. And when I do, it is clear that the apperception has already taken place and that there's nothing else to squeeze out of it. It almost feels like lifeless compared to what was received in the moment. It's like trying to reconnect with a previous spiritual experience or epiphany. It's not that it's gone, it's just done its work, and it does not need the me to clarify it any further. When these jewels appear, they do not need to be mined, nor can they be. They have already appeared, and it has already happened, and no further excavation is necessary. In fact, when reading something again anew, there may be even a different seeing that occurs with the text that I did not highlight. Contemplations are no longer needing to be scheduled, but they rather draw me in, as most things either read or heard do when they strike beyond the intellect. This realization was actually a relief for me, because I felt like I was holding this bag of knowledge with holes in it. And now I know when I get something that it has been gotten. I had the most ridiculous experience, at least ridiculous in hindsight, of losing my Who Cares book by Ramesh Balsekar. And I lent the book to my husband some weeks ago. And when I asked him where it was, he was like, I don't know. And then I said, you don't know where it is. And he's like, I gave it back to you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And we all know where that went. And so it's like, in my mind, this was my most recent Bible, so to speak, and that I had highlighted it like crazy. And it was irreplaceable, my mind kept telling me. And I become this fire-breathing dragon, and I was ranting, in my mind, and I was ranting out loud. And then I paused and laughed inside at the irony and thought, I am angry because my Who Cares book is lost. And I then inquired, who is angry? And I could not find anyone. It was the strangest thing. I could feel the heat of the anger, but there was no one to feel it. To have anger, which I thought was mine, just suspended in space, was so bizarre. I thought, why don't I care about this book anymore? What's happening? And then I realized there's only happening. And that's why there was all this heat, but no me. And what I saw is that there is this conjuring of a me that happens through thought. And when this me is gone, the hallucination based on this me is also gone. And I realized that through this experience, I did get what the book was about. Now, having said all this, I will continue to look for the book and read more books because this is just what this body mind does. But there will be no one to care about it. I've had the experience, as probably many of you have had, of not having something in you that's no longer activated, that's no longer triggered for some reason. And I know I had nothing to do with it. It's just no longer there. If I look back at my life, I can probably say with accuracy that nothing I have ever done or nothing that has ever happened to me is my own doing. What can I say that I've actually done? Perhaps I can say that I have cooperated with what was happening to me, but I really have done nothing. And I think it's this way with awakening. I've had so far some things that I feel have been taken away from me, but I can't say that I've really done anything. Beyond my desire and my willingness, I don't know that doing anything has contributed to what has shown up until now. When spiritual teachers say, you are already that, I'm starting to apperceive what that means. And the understanding is immediate. It does not require my mind. Whatever I am, however I am it. I am it showing up however I am showing up. The acceptance that I am what I am seeking closes the gap on this separation that has been automatic up until now. Whether I am the one believing I am separate, or whether I am the one believing that there is only one, there is only one, no matter how this one is appearing. And even the notion of one is a concept, as the notion of one implies two. I am the one in movement, the one in temporal expression, and the one static in stillness and repose. Understanding this continuum means that I never go anywhere. I, as the infinite, just appear as this spectrum of manifestation. I, as the infinite, just appear as this spectrum from manifestation to the unmanifest, yet simultaneously. It would seem that I'm never not happening. So how am I to view what is happening in consciousness? What is happening inside me as me? These reflections in consciousness perpetually all around me. How am I bound by this time-space definition of myself, which is necessary for me to experience myself? Space which gives things dimension and time which allows things to be perceived, allowing for temporal expression, hallucinations that make up me and my world, the cognizer and the cognized. When I look at what disturbs me from this perspective of seeing, I can see how what disturbs me is the event. I, the cognizer, have perceived or experienced the event. which has been recorded by one of my senses, and mind has interpreted it in duality of subject-object. This thing that disturbs me has no independent existence other than my perceiving of it as an appearance in my consciousness. So why is it important to see the self from the self? I, as noumenal presence, am phenomenal absence. There is no me or the illusory imaginings of a me. Perceiving is only the temporal or phenomenal function of what we are. Noumenal presence does not involve a conceiver or the conceived, though it may express itself as manifold phenomena in the me's and you's, appearing and disappearing from moment to moment. I, as noumenal presence, do not have any problem. So when identified as this noumenal presence, this moment, all involvement ceases. Only a me could get involved. Only a me could worry, compare, analyze, forecast, project, remember. So long as there is a me, enlightenment and ignorance are only two sides of the same coin, which is why when engaged as a me, epiphanies are followed by the me claiming to have gotten it, and knowledge gets claimed by ignorance, becoming one. And so when we pray for guidance, or we ask for guidance, it is only a me that thinks it could not be worthy of or get in the way of the apperception that is inevitable and always available. Apperception does not occur in duality. There is no me to have gotten anything. It's because I have already gotten it that the me comes along and says, now let me see if I got this straight. The apperception happens without the me. Isn't it a relief to know that you cannot get anything where enlightenment is concerned? In fact, there is no one that can be enlightened. No one can be enlightened. When old reflections reappear, the me wants to claim responsibility for their reappearance and create a spiritual program to get ahead of it. When the perceiving sense that records the memory, the stench, the dread, the ghost of unworthiness, helplessness, fear, and all of the foregone evidence or hallucinations that have accumulated in the mind of this me with all of its interpretations, all must cease when I, consciousness at rest, noumenal presence, am here. And I am always here. It is the objectivization of itself, meaning the noumenon, that lends to this movement in consciousness or duality. Nisargadatta states that it is this understanding that leads to a conceptual liberation from a conceptual bondage. When the conceptual me disappears, then all interrelated concepts also disappear. This is the so-called miracle. Through this objectivization, we get to play and pretend we are bound, then pretend we are free. We get to play in this play of life upon never having left, as Paul Hederman often says. We get to play and then remember that it is a play. I extended in time and space as what is appearing could never not be free. I could see the involvement that is happening or not happening. And this seeing of what I am not could lead to the apperception of what I actually am. Ramesh states that the desire for one to know oneself could only occur in duality. There has to be the presumption that there is something to be known and that there can be something that is unknown. Again, the opposites come into play. What can be found can be lost. What can be seen can be concealed. What can be learned can be forgotten. Whatever this conceptual me can do or dream can only be conceptual. He talks about ignorance and knowledge being conceptual. If knowledge can turn into ignorance, then is it knowledge? Have you ever had the experience on your journey of having amazing epiphany and then it's gone? Did you ever wonder how such clarity just seems to vanish. I see it as this. I extended myself in time and space as one who knows and thinks she has lost it. Yet I've never stopped being this numinal presence that is beyond the knowing and not knowing. No matter how confused or lost I feel, this is never not true. I am it, confused or not. I am it, whether caught up in karmic patterns or not. I could never not be it, no matter how many disguises I put on. I could get involved in the worst way, feel like crap, and guess what? Still it. What spiritual practices lend to this understanding for me is that they help us to identify as this numinal presence more and more. As this identification becomes automatic, and this is not up to me, so we are not going to effort ourselves into increasing this identification. The more identified we become as this numinal presence, we may or may not feel drawn to practicing as much, because as this dawning occurs, it's like using a compass to get where you already are. So then we might continue to play with the compass because we enjoy it, but not because we need to get anywhere. For example, as life becomes a meditation, or meditation becomes almost an involuntary movement, trying to meditate and to dedicate time to it may seem redundant, unless that's just what we want to do. I'm finding that less and less do I do meditation. It's more like meditation does me. So I feel like meditation happens, but there is no one doing it. I've been in the middle of some of the most serious involvement in what's not true, and found myself minutes later in the deepest meditative state that I've ever been in, completely uninvolved and still, with no mental chatter or interpretation. Now, whether the body apologizes or moves on does not disturb this state, for lack of a better word, that I find myself in. The fallouts from a moment of unconsciousness seem to occur less and less. There seems to be less accumulation of the stuff that accumulates after such incidents. Spiritual practices, when done without a goal, feel like an invitation to just be. What has perpetually disturbed me in what has felt like a series of episodes of torture no longer has the residue of thought that would normally follow each episode. There's no entertainment of the happening which took place through a further disturbance in thought. Not because I'm trying not to do so, but because I'm just becoming less interested in the activity of a mind, or in the activity of mind as a solution to any problem. This negation leads to a sort of peace in the midst of chaos. Recently, my husband and I have been watching a streaming called Ted Lasso. And there's so many people who have come to me and say, you have to watch this show, you have to watch this show. But I didn't have the app. So I specifically bought the app to stream this show because, I was like, if one more person tells me to watch this show, I'm gonna lose it. So I purchased the app, and within the first 5 minutes of the show, my husband and I were hooked. I'm familiar with the SNL characters, Jason, I think it's Sudeikis or something like that. And I've enjoyed him on SNL. He's really, really ridiculous. He's playing in this series a lovable, innocent character who has had success with a football team, but now he's being asked to coach this British soccer team, and he doesn't know anything about soccer. So understandably, the fans don't like him. The team doesn't like him. They're actually pretty mean to him. And he's mistreated by both the fans and the team. And the show is kind of hilarious in a really silly kind of way, but I get why people love it. This character is just so lovable. I think it's because he's so clean. Nothing really sticks to him. No matter how he's mistreated, he meets each individual fresh every time. And his positive expectation and enthusiasm is just contagious. It's like after each episode, I'm like, I want to be like Ted Lasso. Like he's just this spirit that's just has this amazing pureness to him. He doesn't remember people. Remember means to recall, recollect, refer to, or bring back before the conscious mind, things which exist in memory. So therefore, it's like putting some person or event back together based on previous experience. So in essence, we typically interact with a phantom version of one another rather than the reality of one another. He does not remember people. There is a scene where one of his players has a hard time in practice and he's in his head about a mistake he's made. And he says to him, pretend like you have a 10-second memory. Then I thought, people are really, really sticky. Life is sticky when you're living as a separate entity. Think of how our relationship with money, for example, is based on remembering it. Think of how we remember the person or the loved one we interacted with yesterday or every day. And I thought, wow, the loved one that we interact with daily, they do not stand a chance of being seen. We are impressionable as separate entities. What if we became curious and began to question all the things we were so sure of based on previous or personal experience, or even the things we were so sure of based on collective experiences, the things that we all agree upon? What if we became like children and encountered life like we did before anyone began to define our reality? So what if we could sincerely inquire, what is this? This feeling, this thought, this pain, this person, this event? What we may find is that there is nothing but consciousness. But don't take my word for it, because that would be just another concept or memory. If we could awaken from our daily Groundhog Day and just become curious, what would life reveal? And who would be there to have the revelation? My holiday wish for you is happy not knowing. So this concludes my homily. I wanted to share a song with you. It's a love song. What I like about love songs, they're truly, the lyrics sometimes are very transcendent. You know, they start off as very interpersonal. And then at some point you don't even realize, are you talking about each other or are you talking about God? You know, it's just, the lyrics are so beautiful. And I sometimes think that when we're in this state of love, this is the closest experience for a lot of people of experience this God, this unconditional acceptance, this, you know, the things that we feel with another person. So the lyrics say, I just want to see how beautiful you are. And it sounds like a contemplation to me. And in the end, it kind of says, if you love me, won't you say something? And if we're listening, life and love is infused in everything we do, see, and experience, and taste, as demonstrated in some of these lyrics. It cannot be captured. It just is. And this is a song called Best Part by Daniel Caesar, featuring her. So I hope you enjoyed that. So a love song, maybe. This concludes my talk. I am very much grateful to be sharing that with you. And thank you, everyone. Just wanted to say that Awakening Together thrives off of our love and our donations. And thank you so much.
You've been watching our online gathering. It happens weekly on Sundays at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time. To join us live in the sanctuary, visit our website, awakening-together.org. You'll want to click on Online Sanctuary in the main menu, and then in the drop-down menu, look for How to Enter the Sanctuary. Right there at the top of the page is a clickable link. We'd love to see you in the sanctuary and join with you in fellowship. Thank you again for watching. Also, please know that if you'd like to stay connected via the Awakening Together channel here on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell for more notifications. We hope to see you in the sanctuary.